Okay, everybody, it's Thursday. Yes, the day after Wednesday. And of course, it's Thursday, so we should have our Wednesday Crypto Roundtable. We had to publish it today, folks. There's no easy way to put it.
Unicorn series. It's a thing.
Unicorn series. We have a little air traffic issue going on here on the show. But Vinny Lingham and Sandeep are back to break down all of the biggest news in crypto.
And actually, the biggest developments in compute power, we talk about super powerful graphics cards, Vinny's new GPU, and how all that compute power is going to change art, gaming, even NFT creation, just AI, some fun, geeky stuff.
VR, AI. All of that. These new cards are breaking down. And then, of course, we get into the big news, Molly, that Bloomberg is reporting the SEC is probing the Bored Ape maker Yuga Labs over, we think, our NFTs and the ApeCoin securities. It is a vibrant, detailed debate on what should happen in terms of crypto regulation from this point forward.
I love this segment. It just is so fun. And then we talk briefly about Google making Coinbase its main crypto payments processor. It is yet another great show.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what happens with cloud computing plus crypto plus startups and the payment rails there. Could be very interesting. Like Molly said, this is going to be a great show, so I need you to stick with us.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by Dell for Startups provides key solutions for all your startup needs. A dedicated tech advisor will get to know your business goals and deliver customized solutions for rapid tech enablement with top business class PCs and accessories. Apply for Dell for Startups and get 10% off select products during Dell's semi-annual sale at dell.com/twist. Vanta. Compliance and security shouldn't be a deal breaker for startups to win new business. Vanta makes it easy for companies to get a SOC 2 report fast. Twist listeners can get $1,000 off for a limited time at vanta.com/twist. And the Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub helps all founders build a better startup at a lower cost from day one. Open to anyone with an idea, you'll get up to $150,000 in Azure credits, technical advisory, access to mentors and experts, free dev tools, and so much more. There is no funding requirement and it only takes minutes to join. Sign up today at aka.ms/thisweekinstartups.
All right, everybody, welcome back. It's time for our Crypto Roundtable. We do this twice a month with two besties who are just deep in the crypto game and have been in the crypto game for a long time. We got a full docket today of exciting and let's face it, a little bit of scary news. With us again, Sandeep Madra. How are you, sir?
Awesome. Good to be back.
And Vinny Lingham.
Thanks, guys. Great to be back again.
Wow. You guys are coming in hot today.
You guys are fired up.
Wow.
Fired
Look
up.
at that. Look at the energy.
Does somebody need a liquid IV? Like, what's happening here?
No, I've been up since 5:30 this morning, so I'm a little tired because I had a late.
Why are you up so early? Did you hit that tonal, or did you dust it? Have you logged into that tonal behind you? Have you gone through the login?
Not today. But the reason I woke up early, well, like a lot of people on this chat, hopefully, trying to buy the new Nvidia RTX 4090 card that came on sale at 6 a.m. and I managed to get one. So I'm really happy about that.
Would you wake up that early for that card?
Is this like what all the cool miners are doing?
So I could buy secondary. Here's the problem with buying secondary is, first of all, like it just supports the bots that go and attack these sites and buy everything in 5 seconds. Secondly, you have to wait about a week or two more because when you go through the secondary exchanges...
What is it? Why would you wake up at 5 a.m. for a graphic card? The graphic cards out there are so absurdly powerful. What is this one going to do for you?
This one's like 4 times more powerful than the previous generation. It's unbelievable, actually. So at 4K on Cyberpunk, they had 22 frames per second, everything maxed out on the previous card. This one does something closer to like 80 or 90 frames per second, which is insane. So anyway, I'm a gamer. I play some Fortnite, and I wanted to get one of these cards as soon as possible.
Fortnite. That's definitely what you need that for.
Sunny plays Fortnite too.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no beef with Fortnite. It just seems like maybe you don't need quite that much power for.
Well, you do if you want to run it at 4K. Because like I play my Fortnite at 4K, fair. And I really enjoy the graphics. So.
Are you doing Overwatch too?
Yeah, I stick to Fortnite. Like once you get into the Fortnite universe, you get the mechanics going. It's hard to switch. I'm too old to switch between mechanics of different games, so I stick with what I know these days.
Yeah, That's why I'm still on Halo. Thanks, JCal. I see you in there. I see you.
How much does that card cost?
I paid $1,800 for it. I mean, they range between
$1,800 for a graphics card.
Yeah, between $1,500 and $2,000, depending which version you get. I got the one for $1,800 because of the size that fits in my machine, and it's pretty powerful. Dude. It's amazing, and yeah.
So $1,800, Molly, for a card, which is more than the cost of like the M2 laptop.
Yeah.
Peter just said the card is bigger than an Xbox Series S. So
it is.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't get the Founders Edition. I got the Asus, the overclock edition. So it's a little bit faster overclocked. It's got 24 gigs of RAM. It's insane.
I'm not judging. I know there are many nerds
I'm a
in my
geek
life.
because I build my own computers, so that's why I like this stuff. This is fun.
Honestly, I'm the only reason that my brother was not doing that is because he works for like a school district. Otherwise, he would have been up there with you buying the same stuff. Like it's a whole. I got these nerds in my life, and Homestead Creative. I see you. I also love Halo. Yeah. I'm like still stuck on Halo.
But I'm also going to connect this to the render network. So I'd love to talk about AI art today as well. AI art's taking off in a big way, and render's doing cool stuff, and the ability to. So if you think about how many of these cards Nvidia is shipping worldwide, like millions of these cards over the next year or two. These cards are going to be used for things like DALL-E, Midjourney, etc., to power these cards in a distributed network. And I think
so
this is
RTX 4090 is the name of the card. This thing looks like a boombox on the website. I've pulled the website up.
It's huge.
No, wait. How does that fit into a normal computer? It plugs into one of the slots?
It actually uses up 4 slots.
What?
It has to go into
get with the times, JCal.
Yeah. It has to go into an ATX case. You have to have at least 1,000 watts of power in your PSU. Probably 1,200 is probably better. I mean, I may have to upgrade my 1,000 watt to 1,200. We'll see how it can handle it. But it's insane. But this is state of the art, guys. Like it's at 16,000 CUDA cores in this thing. For where the world's going with NFTs and AI art, this is the device that's going to power it.
Is there still competition? I know that Nvidia didn't they change their graphics card strategy because they were like, so many of them are getting scooped up by miners?
Well, they actually waited. So, if you go on the bottom there, Jay, you'll see 22. So this is the test, and I'll answer you now in a second, Molly. Keep going down. 22 frames per second. And I mean, look at the quality difference. And so you have DLSS off at 20 frames per second, DLSS 3 and RT ray tracing on at 100. I mean, look at the difference. It's insane. And that's just one generation shift from the previous generation to this one.
So in other words, when I'm looking at a video game, it's going to just keep crossing that uncanny valley. It's going to keep looking like, you know what I find interesting, Molly, is like a lot of the games, when I play them now, the games look like the cut sequences from 20 years ago when I played the games.
Yeah.
So you remember they used to make, these cut scenes that they would spend like, 2 months making a 30-second cut scene between levels. And then you go back dropping down to like, whatever, EVGA or something. I mean, it is kind of extraordinary.
It's not even going to be about games. I'm just dropping something in our chat here. But this is a combination of VR and one of like AI generated art. So this is a real-time room, Nick, if you can pull that up. Sorry, I'm just switching windows here.
So the idea here is...
take a look at this. This is a real-time room. Nick, I don't know if you're able to pull that tweet up.
No, I get it. So before it comes up, to describe it... Oh, here we go. So make that like 5 times bigger, or just make it full screen if you can. So the idea here is, with these type of cards, you could speak, like you can speak to DALL-E or that Facebook text to a room. You could say, I would like a room that looks like the Aman Hotel in Tokyo, and it would go figure that out. That's pretty trippy. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, Molly and I, when we saw that Facebook. It was pretty obvious what they're doing.
Yeah. So this is pretty incredible, right? This is being generated real time. And so you don't get kind of cheap backgrounds or anything like that. You get an immersive environment.
Mm-hmm. Wow. If you're not watching this live, we're watching, basically sketches render into a complete 3D room.
What's going to be awesome is with Neuralink, when that eventually gets online, you would be able to, Vinny, plug Neuralink into your brain. then whatever you're thinking could then manifest itself in a virtual world that you're inhabiting. And they call this new feature Burning Man. It's the new feature. There you go. I mean, it is pretty crazy. This feels like yet another tipping point in terms of just what's possible.
This is all like converging on AI. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not just about the graphics. I mean, these GPUs power, AI.
Yes.
The AI itself. Yeah.
Like this is all part of this big ongoing tech trend about how GPU is the new CPU because it can do this. It can think it's not linear. It's simultaneous.
Correct.
Parallel. Yeah. I mean, you could say you're saying the characters in some of these video games, if their AI, if their behavior is driven by machine learning and AI, those tasks would be dropped to this card possibly.
Exactly.
Well, and beyond video games, just like generating thinking and scenarios and processing multiple processes in parallel, so you can just get to conclusions faster.
Sunny,
I guess we're never getting quantum computing. We're just going to get faster and faster GPUs.
Yeah, I think that's probably right for the next decade or so. But Vinny, is this going to? I'm sorry, Sunny. Are you getting the sense that AI, Molly and I were talking about this the other week after Tesla's AI day, are you getting the sense that AI is starting to compound and the actual results of, the previous, verticals that have been mastered, whether it's poker or Go or, DALL-E or GPT-3, whatever it is, do you feel like those things are increasing velocity, perhaps hitting, what we call in the industry a tipping point where they're just going to be flowing at a much higher rate?
Yeah, definitely. There's some laws that, people should put out, but for the longest time, we had Moore's law with, general purpose CPUs, right? You guys are all familiar with it. Every 18 months, we'd have twice as much computing power. And I think with the chips behind this, because Tesla has their own chips, Google has their own chips, and you have general purpose GPUs from like Nvidia. I think we're really seeing all of that same law happen, but the compounding rate is even faster, I believe. Mm. And with this, it's not just related to compute, but it's memory, it's cloud, and it's all of that coming together. Because, when you use any of those services, and, they talked about this at the Tesla day, much of the power is not just what the core software of the AI, but it's also the infrastructure that they've built, right? What do they call their big AI machine? Jake Hell, they have a name for it, right? At Tesla.
I'm slipping me now, but a big part of this is getting the data from the cloud, from storage into memory so that you can run these processes. So they have like a large number of Ethernet cables going, from computer to computer. So when they drop a simulation, they're like, hey, this turn on Market Street is absurdly hard. Let's just run a gazillion simulations based on everybody who's driven through it as a human.
Dojo, right?
Domo or Dojo?
The Dojo is Dojo, but somebody says Domo also.
Yeah, it's Dojo. Yeah. Dojo.
It's pretty incredible. So they're building their own sort of racks to do it's really interesting to see hardware being built specifically for certain tasks.
Yeah. And that's what's really that's what's exploding this, right? Because, with Moore's law, you just had like the CPU getting faster. Now you have this combination of cloud, infrastructure, network speed, and the CPUs. And so we should name it. We should call it something. And then kind of everyone will talk about it.
Molly, you brought up the data.
Law. I love it.
The data.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start referring to data as data.
Oh, fancy.
Only when I'm angry.
Are you going to refer to it in the plural too?
That's data's right there. No, I mean,
don't make me pull over and come back there for your data.
Did you? Yeah, exactly. If you guys don't stop screwing around with all of Dad's data, I'm turning this car around. Listen, big news right now. Dell has a semi-annual sale going on, and select devices will get a free upgrade to Windows 11 Pro, which is really amazing. Very tight software. I just updated to it. And that's not the only amazing offering from Dell. If you're a founder or if you work at a startup, you need to apply for Dell for Startups. Here's why. You're going to get free access to a team of expert IT advisors. These experts will provide you with customized solutions to make your tech stack world-class. Dell will help you access capital as well for building out your tech stack. And you'll get exclusive discounts for Dell's amazing hardware. And we love Dell at launch. In fact, every new employee at both of my companies gets a beautiful 39-inch ultra-sharp curved monitor, my favorite, They're amazing. Just nice little touches where you can plug in a USB-C to the side. You can have multiple inputs into it. You can do picture-in-picture. All these great things are possible with those gorgeous ultra-sharp curved monitors, especially the ability to have 3-4 windows open across so you can multitask. So Dell's the best. You know that. They're awesome at what they do. Apply for Dell for startups today and get up to 10% off on powerful tech via Dell's semi-annual sale. Just head to Dell.com/twist. That's Dell.com/TWIST. Did you guys see the AI podcast of Joe Rogan interviewing Steve Jobs this week that came out?
No,
okay,
wow.
So some maniacs. I don't know if this was
Terrifying.
completely hacked. Just to put the setup here very briefly, it's like a 20-minute clip. Joe Rogan interviewing Steve Jobs. Let's just listen to a clip, and then I want to get everybody's reaction around the horn.
I miss this. It's always fun.
How's it going? Come on, tell me about Jobs. It's always good to see you, buddy. I'm so happy you came on, man.
Yeah, it's great to be on the show. Your audience is just so different from your normal Apple users, and that's a good thing. It's cool.
Well, I was an Apple user way before I did this show. I've been a fan of yours and Macintosh since the 1980s.
All right, Vinny, what do you think? How close to the uncanny valley?
Compare that to the metaverse stuff that we saw this week.
So just so I'm clear, that was AI generated?
Yes.
That's what they're claiming.
Joe Rogan did not interview Steve Jobs that we
it sounds like they were kind of clipping pieces of what he said. When they make those fake Obama speeches and stuff like that.
Yes.
It didn't sound like real.
That was my exact first reaction. So there's a technique. Howard Stern would do this on his show. Somebody would publish their bio and read it. So Hillary Clinton's bio would come out, or whoever, Obama's bio would come out, and they would take every single word, and then if you typed out a sentence, it would just pull those words together. So yes, I thought that too. Like maybe this isn't AI, Molly. Maybe this is like a put on.
So this is where some of the legal stuff is going to come into play. Like Jennifer just commented that this is morbid and disrespectful. Mm-hmm. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I actually agree with that. I think that there's especially for like famous public figures. I mean, their voices, the rights to their voices belong to their estate. You'll see what James Earl Jones did with Darth Vader now. Is he licensed his voice to Disney so they can use AI to reproduce his voice legally for all the movies they're going to do with Darth Vader in it. And it's going to sound like James Earl Jones, and his estate's going to get some percentage of royalties. And I think that is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think if you take someone like Steve Jobs, where you haven't taken it with permission, now I get it's a bit of parody here and there, and that's like, whatever, all fun and games. But at some point, there is a copyright, right? Like I think there is like a voice right, maybe.
I'm not so sure.
We are going to get to this point, though. I mean, this is like a larger topic about identity, ownership of identity, but we are 100% going to get to the point where that is a huge conversation, because between like biotech, deep fakes, the ability to manipulate your voice with AI, like, yes, there is going to be a question about who owns your own identity.
So wait a second.
This might be litigated in the Supreme Court at some point. Like it may go that high. As someone's coming from the identity world as well.
I got to say, Molly, I think it's the cat's out of the bag on this one, because I just saw on my Twitter feed trending, Tucker Carlson has Hitler on tonight. So that's coming at 7 p.m.
God, Jason.
Tucker is interviewing Hitler. But it's in AI. Do not worry.
The double. I'm giving you the double.
Thank you, everybody.
Get off the track.
God.
I mean, this is what's going to happen. It's the truth.
Some kind of
Tucker's like... Anyway. It's a double header. Mussolini and Hitler.
Ooh,
it's a roundtable. It's a roundtable.
Okay, pull it back.
Sorry.
Our stream just got kicked off YouTube again.
I was kind of just thinking, Molly, of like, what's the interview that we're going to be forced to hear that none of us wants to hear?
No, we follow the thought process here.
What did you think, Sonny? Did you buy that this was AI driven? Did you at a minute just get tingly feelings that it was like almost there with Steve Jobs being on Joe Rogan?
Yeah, like, my general thing when I see these things now is the core of it is AI driven, and then there's like an editing layer on top, right? And I think you see a lot of that even with these AI generators. The really great stuff that makes you question, someone's taken it and then put it through Photoshop or something like that. So my guess would be like there was something that came out of a tool, and I don't know anything about it. It's the first time I saw it, but it's something that came out of a tool, and then they've done some tweaking to it to make it like, imagine like we do with the podcast, there's something recorded, and then your team goes in and edits it. I feel like that's what's happened. I don't think it's like just straight out of the tool untouched.
I felt like this could be faked, Molly. I agree. I thought what they might have done is taken some keynotes. You notice how echoey it sounds like he's in a hall. So the corpus here may have been taken from the Steve Jobs keynotes. Remember back in the day, they didn't have the same audio fidelity. There wasn't production value at a lot of those early keynotes. It was just him on stage with a lavalier. So it sounded echoey. Joe Rogan, I guess a Joe Rogan impersonation is pretty easy, but what they could have done is taken like audiobooks or whatever, and then said, have Joe Rogan ask this question, and then make an amalgamation of this answer from the Walter Isaacson bio, right? So they could have put the Walter Isaacson bio in there. So this really has to do with what data set you're putting in here, I guess.
Well, so are we asking the question, and it sounds like we don't know the answer. They did not generate the voices, right? So the question we're having, it sounds like, is did they grab existing audio and just sort of use a machine to splice it together quite cleverly and create a conversation?
Yeah.
Or did they literally...
No, this was done by a company
editing is done on top.
Sound files. They're saying that they did generate the voices. Okay, got it.
This company, Play.ht,
we should have them on and see if that's true.
They do text to speech. And I don't know, you know some of these programs I use, Molly, that I'll send you links in sometimes. You know how like the premium versions have a little bit more refined?
The better voices, yeah.
Like to have Gwyneth Paltrow does a voice on one of these. So sometimes I'll have Jipo, when I haven't seen her in a while.
Your new favesies.
Yeah.
She's obsessed with you.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll just send... I used to send her a Wall Street Journal story and say, hey, Jipo, can you read this for me? Send me the MP3. Now I just use
But the flip side is, Waze has this, right? You can have
Cookie Monster.
But those I don't think are done with AI yet. And, Google's really great at this. So my guess is like there's a core thing that came out of a tool, but then there's some editing done on top. And even the greatest AI stuff out of these tools still gets edited on top, right? So I think would be my guess.
When does the polish kind of get added? Is it 6 months or 6 years? Where we don't have to do that polish step that you're talking about.
Probably like 18 to 36 months. I think we don't have to do because it's kind of, it goes back, it's growing exponentially. Because as it sees more of, because you can also train it on that. Hey, this is what came out and this is how people did the polish. So the AI will just get better at completing that polish.
You know what genre is going to be?
That's it for us, Jason. Like our salad days are almost over here. Robo-host.
Perfect. I want to ski the mornings too. Hi, Molly. What's on the docket for today?
Red flag, J-Cal.
You remember, J-Cal, remember Max Headroom?
Max Headroom? Yes, I remember him.
Yeah.
He was awesome. You know where this is going? I think there's going to be an entire genre now. You know about the fan fiction where people would write like their own Star Wars, or it started with Star Trek, and Star Trek tried to stop it, and then Star Wars embraced it. Then people started making short films. And Star Wars said, yeah, you can make short films. Here's actually a kit to use the sounds from a lightsaber. Here's how to make a lightsaber in After Effects or whatever program it was. I think the way this is going, somebody who's a talented screenplay writer could write a screenplay and then have it go to like storyboards and then eventually to like a fully finished version of the film. So The Mandalorian could have been written by a group of fans.
Yeah.
And just published.
Yeah. Wattpad does like some form of this now, right?
They do? Wattpad does that? Huh?
Yeah, I think, I mean, not to that extent, but like they kind of have
they have fan fiction. Wattpad is for fiction.
Yeah. But they've done some relationships with studios now, I believe.
I mean, it turns out 50 Shades of Grey, I met the author of that at a party in LA, and my friend introduced me to her, and I asked her what the inspiration was, and she said, actually, it's a famous story. I'm surprised you don't know it. Like, she was writing Twilight fan fiction. And it was Twilight erotica that became 50 Shades of Grey. She changed names back to her own characters. All right. There's a lot in the docket. I like this little AI turn. Thanks for buying your card, Vinny. Did you install it yet? Oh, wait, you didn't get it yet.
Oh, yeah, I ordered this morning.
Are you going to have an install party? Are you going to have like an install party where I'm going to come over and watch you install it?
I'll do it myself.
Can you do an unboxing video for our show?
Sure.
That would be great if instead of doing like a reveal party for like a boy or a girl, like Vinny did a show where he just like plopped it in and then we see how many frames he gets.
Unboxing is a genre. I'm just saying.
Created by Engadget. I mean, how much joy will you get when you fire up a Fortnite for the first time and put it in 4K.
It's not going to make any difference. It won't make any difference to Fortnite.
No. Actually, Sonny, I challenge you on this. Are you running DLSS?
Oh, dude, I play it off like a Nintendo Switch.
You're playing. Okay, I play it on PC. No, it actually makes a big deal because I can't run ray tracing on Fortnite right now because the graphics card's too slow. So the ray tracing is a cool feature in Fortnite, but you can't do it because you can't get the frames per second you need.
Nick, by the way, Vinny, you should know Nick is accusing you of using aimbot. That's why you need all that compute. I'm just the messenger.
Wait, you got this card? You bought 2 of these cards? One's for your aimbot and one's to run the game?
No. I just have one. Nick, I'll 1v1 you in Fortnite. Let's see who wins. We should live stream that.
Okay, I can't wait to watch like some 12-year-old be like, take that VB word.
I'm pretty decent, JKL. I'm pretty decent.
I mean, I really do. I think we need a stream.
Okay, founders, if you're a SaaS or services company that stores customer data in the cloud, you need to be SOC 2 compliant from a third party if you want to close big deals. And you don't want to close big deals. You want those lighthouse customers. Well, our friends at Vanta make it incredibly easy for you to get and renew your SOC 2. On average, Vanta customers are SOC 2 compliant in just 2 to 4 weeks. Compare that to 3 to 5 months without Vanta. And they partner with over 24 audit firms who have been trained to file SOC 2 reports directly within Vanta. It's a total no-brainer. A bunch of our portfolio founders have used and love Vanta. They've all had an amazing experience. And if you don't have that SOC 2 compliance, well, you're just not going to get those major customers. And let's face it, those customers are the ones that are the most profitable and the lighthouse customers that draw people to your product or service. And here's the best part. Vanta's going to give you $1,000 off. That's right. Vanta, big fans of This Week in Startups. And you can get $1,000 off your Vanta SOC 2 compliance at vanta.com/twist. That's VANTA.com/twist for $1,000 off your SOC 2. And such a great company. I made an angel investment as well. Congratulations to the Vanta team. Well done. There was big news this week. The enforcement era of crypto is, we're deep in it. People have lost a bunch of money. And this one, to me, I had wondered if this one would happen. I'm on the fence about this one. I don't know exactly how I think about this one. So can you tell us about what happened with the SEC and Bored Apes?
Yes.
Yeah, go for it, guys. Not a shock.
Yeah, so I believe in, and we should probably just maybe get into the definitions, but the article that came out exactly this one is that they've started some type of investigation, which we don't know any of the details around, but really, what maybe a good discussion, and I've actually pushed back to Jake Molly because you guys spent a lot more time on this, is what is the definition of a security? And then, because that's what this all comes back to, and I sent something in the chat, maybe we can pull it up, and maybe if we start there, I think it really will help frame the discussion. So
sure,
because a lot of times it gets lost because people throw it around, but people fully don't really always understand what a security is. So Nick, I pulled that up. If you want to pull it up as a screenshot or whatever, so what is a security? And when we kind of look at it from this perspective, right? Okay, it's fungible. It's a tradable financial instrument. It's used to raise capital, right? There's equities, there's debt, there's payments, right? And so we have to really start asking ourselves, what aspect of what they've done falls into this? And so maybe let's use that to frame our discussion.
Great. Yeah. I mean, equities in the United States, we know, are regulated by the SEC, and they provide ownership in an entity, common interest in a company. And there's a series of laws around it.
Right.
And these are driven by the Securities Act of 1933. And
you have happened,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, a lot of this dates back to the Great Depression, when people lost a lot of money and they wanted to protect consumers. That's where accreditation comes from, private. And of course, there's the Howey test.
I think, and that's important to point out, right? It's you have two things happening. One, you have the definition of a security, a fungible an NFT can't be a security then. It's literally in the name, non-fungible. Anyway, a security refers to a fungible, negotiable financial instrument that holds some type of monetary value. A security can represent ownership in a corporation in the form of stock, a creditor relationship with a government body, or a corporation represented by owning that entity's bond or rights to ownership as represented by an option. But
Right.
then,
Yeah.
So by that, I see what you're saying, Sonny, right? By that definition, an NFT would not seem to qualify as a security. But layered on top of that is the Howey test.
Right. That's where they actually put all this to work, because people did need clarity on that. And an investment contract exists if there is an investment of money in a common enterprise with a reasonable expectation of profits to be derived from the efforts of others, which really does sound like NFTs and the Bored Apes project. So
Well, let's dive into some of the things. Okay, first of all, Bored Apes, Yuga Labs, they've got 5 of something like the top 8 NFT collections, and they account for like more than 25% of the entire NFT market cap. Okay. So over $5 billion in sales. They've raised over $450 million in VC money. And I'm getting some of this data from the Milk Road.
This is directionally correct. Yes.
Yeah. So this is the Milk Road newsletter, which I subscribe to. It's very good. And then, they've got big celebrity holders, Snoop Dogg, Justin Bieber, Neymar, etc. So I guess the real issue here is, and this is the problem with crypto. Crypto has an issue where there's a lack of transparency on who the counterparties are to a trade. Okay. So this is the big issue with all of crypto. When you're buying something, who's on the other side? Are they pumping and dumping it? Like the SEC, and if you look at the way, NASDAQ, the stock markets track, like they know who's on the back end, who the counterparties to every trade is. If you're using a social profile to pump the price, and on the other side selling stuff, then they knew you've done it, and you can go to jail, or you can fine, or whatever the case is. In crypto, it's very different. In crypto, anyone can go, this crypto is going to the moon, use the influence. Kim Kardashian got fined $1.2 million just because she was promoting. Like anyone can promote something. Now, the people, this is like the penny stock days. The people who pay Kim, or the people who pay all these celebrity influencers, they pay them so they can drive demand for these coins so that the prices go up. When the prices go up, they dump their coins in the back end and no one knows. And this is the problem with crypto, is that no one knows who's dumping when the pumps happen.
Right. So that is what happens when you have a security. When you have something that's freely tradable, market manipulation can happen. So what's really happening here is Bloomberg is reporting that the SEC is investigating or asking for information on what is going on over at Yuga Labs. Now, I believe they also bought CryptoPunks. They pulled together a bunch of these NFT assets. Now, I have been through this myself 1 or 2 times with the SEC. They will ask you for information about a private company you've invested in or a public company. They just ask for a document up. So in one case, there was a private company that went out of business. I got an SEC thing that said, can you give us all the information on your investment in this company? I, hire lawyers who cost $2,000 an hour. And they're like, I'm like, well, what's going on? They're like, yeah, what is going on? And I'm like, why am I? And they're like, well, are they going to depose me? Or like, am I in trouble? Or is this founder in trouble? And they're like, yeah, good questions. I'm like, well, when did we find out? He's like, good question. I'm like, how does the SEC work? Good question. They request information. They look into stuff. They never tell you if you're good, you're bad, or why they're doing it. So I would just caution people that this doesn't mean that there's an action coming necessarily. They could be getting information. But, and this is an important quote, Yuga hasn't been accused of wrongdoing, and the opening of an SEC probe doesn't mean the agency will sue the firm. That's just, I guess, Bloomberg saying that. But I do want to point out one thing, to your point. And this is, to me, the duck test. It walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck. Maybe it's a duck. When you put something on an OpenSea page like this one, pull up the whole page, and when you look at an OpenSea page for an NFT, you start to see the life of this over time. And the life over time, based on price and the trading activity, if we were to pull up that page on OpenSea, this looks and is designed like a stock. This looks more like a stock than an eBay page, right? And so because of the ease at which these are traded, to Vinny's point, the market manipulation that has occurred and these marketplaces that are trading them smells like a duck, quacks like a duck. And you need only look at Masterworks as a comparison. If it's art, Masterworks.com, which is a sponsor of this show, and I've bought art on there, they do each of their art offerings as a security, as like a basic mini IPO, and they follow the rules. So if this is similar to art, which is how some people look at it, it should follow the rules, I believe.
So let me just like caveat something and make sure this is clear. I think out of all the NFT projects and companies, Yuga's probably one of the better ones, right? They're probably like the
better how?
No, like it's a real company. They've got real investors. They're not, I don't know for certain, but they're probably not running any scams in the background, etc. So I have no information, to the contrary. They would not be they shouldn't be a good candidate for the SEC probe if you want to prove out some case law. Because here's the problem from my perspective. The SEC takes them on. They might actually lose this case. And it might be deemed not to be secure.
To be clear.
Well, the probe. So the probe may go on. They may not go with the case, or they may not succeed. And then the precedent's been set, and then all the scammy projects are going to basically fall under that bucket, right? So that's one outcome. The other one, if you went after one that was clearly fraudulent and you win that, you can build a case on top of that, on top of that, on top of that. So I think it's kind of interesting that they decided to go for the big guys first, who are definitely more legitimate than most of the other players in the market.
Well,
because it's a high stakes gamble. I mean, if the SEC doesn't, if they push forward, so maybe they just walk away from the probe and they go, it's art or whatever. If they go forward and they lose, I think they're going to be in a tough spot.
All right, everybody, I am here with Obi Akpuda. He is a program manager over at Microsoft for startups. You've heard me talk about the ridiculous Founders Hub benefits before. So, Obi, you also are giving people Microsoft Outlook, Teams, and of course, GitHub Enterprise. People may not know Microsoft owns GitHub.
1,000%. Like you mentioned, we have, a plethora, a smorgasbord, if you will, of first-party offerings in terms of what we can provide to founders. And again, we're just trying to go from anywhere from the back office type of thing in terms of from MS Office, and from a DevOps perspective, we want to be able to get you squared away with GitHub and so many other resources as well, from productivity and onwards.
All right, thanks so much, Obi. Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub has no fundraising requirements, as we discussed. It's open to anybody. It takes only 5 minutes to apply, and startups get 6 figures in benefits right away. Sign up for Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub today at aka.ms/thisweekinstartups. My guy Obi's going to take care of you.
They don't seem to be investigating whether there's fraud, right? They just seem to be investigating which definition of a duck we should use.
Yeah.
Whether it's the original, what is a security definition of a duck, or the Howey test version.
I also just want to know do we know what they're investigating, or they just ask for information? They're probing. I don't know that we don't know if they're front running or if it's celebrity endorsements.
Well, one thing, Nick, you pulled up the OpenSea page for an ape. Yeah. Nick, I sent you a link for a StockX page for a sneaker. Yeah. Right? And you can quickly pull that up if you want. Molly, we were just talking about this before we started. This is almost the same thing. Now, is this a duck? Right? And so, because it's running the same way, you can look at the past sales, the current, and so it's really, that's what I'm saying. I think there's a lot more clarification required, because it has all the same kind of charts, right? You can look at the price over time. You can look at the trades. You can look at all those type of things. And so,
this is where, though, I really do want to read the Howey test definitions, because we have not gotten there yet. So we have one definition of a duck. What is a security? Then we have the Howey test, which I think will help us differentiate a little bit from sneakers, for example.
Okay. All right,
so one, do you have an investment of money? That can be sneakers or apes. 2, in a common enterprise. So assuming you're not also putting your money in Nike, then you don't necessarily apply it to sneakers, with the expectation of profit to be derived from the efforts of others.
Yeah, I don't think this actually applies, to be honest.
It doesn't apply to the sneakers, no. The sneakers also provide real world value.
Vinny is saying he doesn't think it applies to the apes either.
Yeah, I don't think it applies to the apes. I'll tell you why.
Completely applies.
No. Hold on. If I buy a Bored Ape, and I haven't bought one, if I bought a Bored Ape, I'd be investing money, sure. But I'm not buying the enterprise. I want the ape. I like the picture. It's very interesting. And do I care about the profit? Well, maybe long term you sell it, but you buy a piece of art, you buy something else. Hopefully it's worth something in the future. But I have digital photo frames in my house. If I want to put a Bored Ape in my house, I don't really care about what it's worth tomorrow or not. There's utility for me showing a NFT, a Bored Ape in the house. And to be derived from efforts of others, I don't think it applies either. Like, I think this is my point. What is interesting about Bored Apes is that they're iconic. There's enough like visuals, information. I've been to some of the parties. I'm not an ape owner, but if I had to buy one, I believe I'd buy one because it's an iconic piece of art that I can display in my home or place.
If the art, I'll tell you where they might wind up getting tripped up here. In a common enterprise and to be derived from the efforts of other. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but when you own one of these apes, they will give you the serum, you get other drops, you get other benefits from it, right? So that is the common enterprise of the ape ecosystem, which they promote.
If I care about that, I don't know.
No, but it exists. It doesn't matter. Your opinion doesn't matter. It's just if it exists. So it exists that there's a common enterprise here. Doesn't matter if you care about it. That's not the test. And is that coming from others? It is. So that's where they have specifically, and I'm only talking about the Bored Apes. I don't know if that equivalency of serums and drops and all this stuff exists in other NFTs. I know it doesn't exist in all of them.
No, they do. They do.
But not all.
There's also the coin, right? There's also Ape Coin.
But at that point, there's utility, right? There's a utility thing in owning it. The question really is, Jason, like if you own, here's an example. There's a wine farm in Napa where you can buy a piece of the land, co-op, own the land, and every year you pay a small fee and you can buy production that comes off the land, but you can only buy that production if you own a piece of that land, and it's probably got like 200 owners or something like that. How is this any different?
Is that limited to accredited investors?
I don't think so. Anyone can go buy a piece of land.
Yeah, so it depends on if it's like they might be only offering that to accredited investors, but I think in the story
that gets to expectation of profit. If they're just buying that land so they get like a piece of the wine, it might be a little different. Sonny, you were going to jump. Sonny, what do you think about this? The addition of the Ape Coin part of this as a slightly complicated document.
Yeah. So that's a little bit more of like, when all these things we're looking at starts to make it look a little bit more challenging. Now, sort of the entire common enterprise of ApeCoin hasn't been fully disclosed yet, so we don't understand and it's all early, right? And so I think that's the one that could be a little bit more, I guess, gray area than the, sort of the Bored Ape NFTs. Especially because that looks more like a currency than a NFT does, right? And so, but Vinny, like, what's your thought there?
None of us know. We're all surmising here, right? So like, I'll use an example. Like, Sonny, we had a bottle of Chateau Latour like a few weeks ago. I went to go buy like 3 or 4 bottles of that stuff. Okay, it's expensive, and I'm storing it and I'm keeping it for. Maybe I sell it because it goes up in value. Maybe I drink it. This like. Is the wine now, is that now a security? If you were selling a fractional ownership of it to people and it was a common enterprise in that bottle of wine, yes. But I'm not fractionalizing my Bored Ape if I buy one. So if I buy a Bored Ape, I'm not fractionalizing it. Yeah. I mean, it does seem like in the story, they seem to be implying in the story, or they explicit that the SEC is also examining the distribution of ApeCoin. Also, yeah. That's a different play altogether. So let's separate the two. The coin is not an NFT; it's a token, right? Mm-hmm. The Bored Ape itself is an NFT. This is my point. If you're going to pick someone to go after and take a probe to a case, this is probably not the one you want to go after because the Bored Ape is so iconic. It's part of pop culture. It's on the front cover of magazines. Justin Bieber owns one.
Isn't that why you find Kim Kardashian though? I mean, they're trying to send warning shots. It seems like
she got fined for something else. She got fined for promoting what was it?
Yeah. I'm just saying, if you're the SEC and you're like, I'm trying to issue some warnings to this entire industry about multiple aspects.
But this is different.
Of course, you start with the biggest names.
No, this is different. Remember, the stature of Bored Apes, I think.
I understand what you're saying. You're saying it makes it like a Warhol. So that would argue more towards people are buying it for the artistic value.
Exactly.
And the intrinsic joy of owning the tiny little image.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. And I would say that the SEC's question is, how many people bought it with the expectation of profit versus for the appreciation of the art?
Bingo.
We don't know.
We don't know. And you can't go back in time 2 years and ask people, like, why did you buy it? They're like, I thought it was cool. I mean, they kind of like people were buying 10, 20 of these things and like, wow, this is great. Just because someone buys it for profit. Like, so it's by the same token, when I'm on the wine websites and Reddit wine, whatever, Cabernet wine, Reddit. Oh, you should buy this bottle of, Chateau Latour 2001 because it's going to go up in value this much and they're going to be 3 times the price in 5 years. But I buy it because I want to drink it. Is that a security?
There was an easy solution for them to actually make this have a better argument. It's not a security because it does trade, because it's a common enterprise, because people buy with the expectation of value. They could have solved this whole problem. They should have made a print with a number on it, one of 10,000, and made a formal print of each Bored Ape. And when you buy it, the NFT represents your interest in that piece of physical art in the world. Then this would have literally changed the entire dynamic of it, because it would have been when you buy the NFT, you get that piece of art. And they could have just said, we're storing these 10,000 paintings or prints in this locker library for you, or you can pull them down yourself if you want to. That would have actually probably changed the dynamic here.
That's what this guy, Damien Hirst, should do. There was a story this week about this artist, Damien Hirst, who burned 1,000 of his paintings and then is going to burn like a couple hundred more because it's part of this NFT project called The Currency, where it's clearly quite specifically art. And that is a great idea to like label them, just to be like, this only exists for art. I think
that's going to be a heck of it. And if that's going to be a heck of a one for the SEC, they're like, here's the ashes. You bought
there
those.
Are lots of questions. Well, look, I think that's all what we're sorting out right now, right? Like we're all sorting out at what point were these projects meant to be art versus investments. Did the investment side just get away from people because nobody thought they would go up in value like they did? Were they always securities disguised as art? We don't know, right? But like we're literally in that kind of growing pains phase of this entire economy right now where, and again, this is Bloomberg reporting based on an anonymous source that the SEC is looking into some stuff. Like we don't know, but I do know that it seems like we're at the point in this economy where people are starting to just send up flares.
So let's ask the other question. So why is it an issue if it is a security?
Because of the rules around trading securities.
Okay, and so these rules exist for what reason?
To avoid money laundering
it all down. That's a whole other show.
No.
To avoid fraud and consumer harm. It's a consumer protection law, also money laundering. So if people can pop up NFTs and use them essentially as currency, then you could have all of the front running, dumping, pump and dumping, all of those things that can happen in a security. You could have fraud. All of those things that occur require some protections. They require insurance. They require an accounting firm, an audit. That's why going public is a pain in the neck, and it requires continued audits. And that's why the SEC exists. It's literally its mandate is to protect consumers from harm. It's consumer harm.
So the real issue fundamentally, Jason, is this lack of identity in crypto.
That would solve a lot of it. If you knew who was buying it and you limited it to accredited investors, you had it tied to a bank account, you could at least say, hey, only accredited investors can participate in this. And
so this exists already. Like Civic's built this. We've got on-chain identity. Sure. We're working with a number of companies to do this. Here's the issue. In the industry we're seeing is there isn't enough demand for this because there are no regulations in place that say you have to run on-chain identity. So it's really, really good for digital identity providers and blockchain identity providers if the SEC says, look, we're not going to take away the ability to trade these NFTs and buy these, but there needs to be a trace of who bought what, and there needs to be some record of it from the issuer. So if you buy it from Yuga, you have to be identified, and then there's an on-chain identity. You can use Civic or anyone who supports the DID standard, which we helped write. Like this is something which exists today, but there is
creates friction.
We have to go after people who are voluntarily willing to adopt the standard right now because there are no regulations in place. So like, why don't the regulators come to the front and say, look, at the minimum, let's just add identity in everywhere so we have the same playing field as we have in other regulated entities and everyone knows who's doing what and there's no money laundering happening, and if there is, we can detect who it is. Let's just start there before we start going on to figuring out whether or not it was a security or not.
Well, one of the regulations they could potentially contemplate is not to say it's a security, but I was looking up your question about like, why isn't wine a security? If you invest in wine through, some professional brokerage or similar, it is unregulated, but it can be considered in this alternative investment bucket. You could imagine a scenario in which NFTs, the art as issued by an entity that obviously is dependent on the price of that art and the associated utility coins, starts to fall into that alternative investment bucket and is regulated in that way. And we're probably moving towards some version of that. We're just like pretty early. Sonny, you haven't said anything in a while. What are you thinking?
No, you know what? Honestly, like, what would be really awesome, I think, for all the listeners and just for ourselves is from our network, let's find like a securities lawyer that's looking into crypto and maybe just have them on as a guest or something like that. I think it'd be really helpful for everyone because it's just so gray. You know, we're obviously looking at Investopedia and Wikipedia and trying to figure this stuff out. It'd just be really helpful.
I don't think it's gray.
I think it's super gray. I think it's super gray.
All of I'll tell you, the tokens, they should have all been. I don't think that's going to wind up being gray. And then when they're a common enterprise, all those tokens, I think, are going to get regulated. And but
even Gary Gensler doesn't make it easy, Jake. How he very clearly says that Bitcoin is not a security.
It's not a common enterprise because it doesn't have like a central authority in it. But I agree that they could have done a better job of being more upfront about this. I think their position has always been, here's the rule set. You guys didn't follow it. Now you pay the price. But when you do buy into, there's a bunch of investment platforms for alternative assets. We're an investment in one called Vincent. And they only take accredited and qualified purchases for this reason, because they want sophisticated investors who understand the risk that's occurring when you're buying wine as an investment. I do think this Damien Hirst thing is pretty interesting. I just sent the Instagram. To be totally honest, I think he's doing like an art project to kind of poke the tiger here. This is what he says. Tomorrow I will be burning my 1,000 The Currency artworks. He calls them literally the currency, which I kept as NFTs. A lot of people think I'm burning millions of dollars of art, but I'm not. I'm completing the transformation of these physical artworks into NFTs by burning the physical versions. The value of art, digital or physical, which is hard to define at the best of times, will not be lost. This is a run-on sentence. Will not be lost. It will be transferred to the NFT as soon as they are burnt, and I will be live streaming the full burn here on Instagram. Tune in tomorrow. So, I mean, he's kind of poking the tiger here with this concept, but I think he's also just a giant grift.
This is just performance art. This is the pure art.
This is $2 million from a laser. Yeah,
it's performance art, right? Like,
kind of.
I mean, we should end. We have to wrap soon, but we should end on this kind of happier note, which is like NFTs. Clearly, whatever they end up being, alternative assets, alternative investment assets, maybe securities, maybe art, or some combination of all three.
Oh, yeah. All of them, yeah.
They're here. Katie Hahn, the founder of Hahn Ventures, still believes, is the other story that you guys had in the docket today, that NFTs are the future. She says, just like Damien, we are going to live increasingly in a digital world. And I happen to think that if you live in a digital world, you're going to want to own digital goods in that world. You won't be satisfied simply renting them, which is what we do now. We buy our content from walled gardens. Without digital scarcity, which is what NFTs unlock, you don't really own anything. You're subject to the whims of a platform. And I think NFTs and digitally scarce goods fundamentally change that.
I think she took that all from our last episode.
Right. Boom. Just transcribed it.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Katie.
No,
Mad respect.
That's exactly it, right? We talked about iTunes, and when you have a movie there, and if you decide to switch to another platform, well, what happens to all your stuff? You can't move it. Did you just rent it from Apple? That wasn't very clear. So I think, she's spot on. She's spot on there.
I mean, we all wanted that.
NFTs
to be fair, we almost
things.
had that.
Yeah.
Remember, like we had our digital downloads, and they would all be trapped on like an iPod.
Yeah.
And then we tried to figure out, and then the market was like, it'll be more convenient. And we were like, it is more convenient. So then what happens?
I had friends who specifically were in, the movie industry, and they would buy Blu-rays or laser discs previously and collect them. Specifically because they knew that these things would switch every, 10 years, 5 to 10 years. And they just wanted to own those physical copies and never have to rebuy them. And that's what everybody has to do now. You have to rebuy them, and then you rebuy them and they've changed them. Mm-hmm. So I have friends who just collect Blu-rays, like even used ones because they're perfect copies. But you can't even make a copy of those. And I remember covering this as a journalist, Molly. You probably did too.
Mm-hmm.
You were allowed to make a backup of your Blu-rays, but they were allowed to put protection on it. So you had to buy copyright protection software to rip those off of the Blu-rays onto your media server. And that is technically allowed, but the movie industry took some sort of position at one point that you're breaking copyright. So you're allowed to make a copy of your stuff, but you're not allowed to break the copyright. And it's like, or the copyright protection scheme. Yeah. It's like, which is it? I mean, make it easy for us.
Remember when Sony literally put rootkits on people's computers when you ripped a CD? Literally. rootkits. I mean, it was bananas. So, I mean, I guess the only thing that's going to make us all feel, I think, okay about digital ownership is complete decentralization. So the question is, will we get that with NFTs? I know, I see you acting like this is a victory, Sonny. But are we going to get that with NFTs? Are we really going to get complete decentralization?
Maybe just like one more quick small segue, but there was another big news yesterday that Google announced at their Cloud Next, which is their conference related to Google Cloud, which is in partnership with Coinbase. They are going to start accepting crypto payments. And so this is pretty huge from a perspective of, if you are building something in and around and on the cloud, they're going to make that quite easy for you to accept crypto payments. And so this kind of pushes on the other side, right? Obviously Google, huge company, giant legal, probably department there. And so I found this really, really awesome for the ecosystem and to kind of drive innovation, because the more of that happens, I think it also drives the utility of what we see. So I thought that was really
Can you
great.
Think of an example of what a developer would do in this regard? Like maybe if you put Dropbox into Google Cloud, and you accepted coins, then, or if you had like a general S3 layer, storage layer, or a podcast platform, like how would this all work?
So I think there's a couple of different ways this manifests. One, let's just say I'm building a crypto related service. And that service is, people are interacting with that service purely with crypto, no fiat. I can now pay GCP with crypto.
Okay.
Right. So that's, so I don't have to kind of convert to fiat and do all that. I can just pay them with that crypto, which, I think is pretty powerful from the growth of their platform perspective. So that's like at the infrastructure layer, right? I think then, take that app example, right? If I'm living in an ecosystem and that ecosystem is powered by, we see this in different places. Like look at an airline reward system, right? That's an entire economy that has value and everything associated with it. And so now that's not a closed system anymore when you move it to blockchain, right? It's composable. People can build on it. It's permissionless, right? Again, we talked about this last time. So I think enabling all of that to then interact with sort of the rest of the world via kind of GCP is really powerful as well. Now, today, all you can really do with your Delta miles, just using that example, is buy Delta tickets, or sometimes you can trade them in for like headphones and things like that. Imagine in this kind of world that we're heading towards, those it kind of ties back to our first conversation. Why aren't Delta miles a security or a currency, right? And so I think all of that just starts coming together, and I think these things help push the boundary of getting clarification around everything we're saying.
Yeah, they are very careful with airline miles to make sure they don't trigger securities. And part of it is you don't actually ever own them. So you get them, but they can be taken away at any time. You can change the rules on them. If you die, you cannot give them to your kids. There's no inheritance of airline miles, but you can trade them, right? So they're really, I remember going through this back in the day, because on Mahalo, back in the day I had Mahalo Answers, and we did Mahalo dollars. And if people answered a question and they got like 10 votes up, they would get a Mahalo dollar, and then you could trade it in for, like a swag. It was actually pretty amazing. But then of course we had people, we put a gift card up there, and we said, if, you could trade 100 Mahalo dollars for a $10 gift card, 10 to 1. And then the economy went bonkers. And we got all these groups that would ask a question, answer their own question, and vote it up. And so we literally had groups of people, and when they went to cash out, we found that it was the same. One person had done this for like 10 hours a day. They had created multiple accounts, and they were taking questions, answering them from Yahoo Answers, and we killed their account, and they went crazy.
It's funny though, like when I think about, to bring this all the way full circle, this is kind of the conversations we're having now are the conversations, I pulled up the column I wrote in 2005 about Sony putting rootkits on our computers to prevent CD ripping. And, we're talking about gaming search engines, or we're talking about deciding how this product is ultimately going to shake out and be consumed by individuals. But really, I think what we're coming down to is like, clearly, this is all Web3 in action. It's all an evolving ecosystem. Fun fact, I was nominated for a digital magazine, a national magazine award for this piece alongside Matt Taibbi in 2005. And I've never been more proud in my life. And I was at the award ceremony, and he was so rude to me.
Oh, sorry.
Whatever.
Wait, you wrote it with Matt Taibbi?
No, he and I were nominated for the same award. I was nominated for this piece, for this
Did he
big
win
writing award.
or?
No, this really legendary old man one whose name I can't remember, but everybody was
Walt
like,
Mossberg?
this is his last chance. And so we're
Okay.
going to
Oh,
I
okay.
think he died shortly after. Anyway,
Oh, got it.
what I'm saying is this is clearly the new internet, right? We're just figuring it's the exact same thing as when Jason and I were covering the early days of the web. Like we're figuring out what the use cases are going to be, what the regulations are going to be, what the rules are going to be, what the adoption is going to look like, which is why this roundtable is so great.
Pretty
So
awesome.
great. Thanks,
That's
guys.
so good.
What coin should I buy? What coin's going to rip? What should we pump and dump
No,
before
we
the
don't do
seminar?
that.
Buy it right now
don't-
before we edit this
we don't do
episode.
it. We don't
What
do
should I
that.
pump
We
and
don't
dump?
do it. I don't do it.
I'll give some market outlook here. I actually think that the best risk-adjusted play in the market right now is Bitcoin. You know, I'll tell you why. Like with all the sort of
In the crypto market or the entire market?
well, no, globally, it's probably the most
Of all assets. Huh.
Yeah. I'll tell you why. So I think the Fed meeting's coming up now on 1st, 2nd November. We're going to see the market's pricing 80% chance of 75 bips. It's probably going to be 50 bips, I think. But let's assume it's 75, which is what the market's predicting. You're going to see massive capital outflows in the rest of the world because they have to service US dollar debt at higher prices. You're going to see foreign currencies collapsing like we saw with England on the last rate hike. The contagion is going to spread to more countries. What you're also going to see is people living in these other countries, they don't always price Bitcoin in dollars. You know, so if you live in South Africa, you look at Bitcoin in rands. If you look in the UK, you look at Bitcoin in pounds. As long as the Bitcoin price is staying stable in dollars, which it has been, you're going to see the price rise in those currencies. And if people are now fleeing their local fiat currencies, they're going to move into Bitcoin or dollars. And even if they're moving at a ratio of 90% dollars and 10% Bitcoin, it's enough fund flows for Bitcoin to rip substantially higher. And I think Bitcoin you look at the on-chain metrics, you look at where Bitcoin is today, there isn't enough Bitcoin out there. I mean, we have like diminishing supplies of Bitcoin on-chain. And a lot of it's going into people are, they're using it as like, like a hedge against fiat system collapse. So I really think Bitcoin is the single best play right now.
You agree, Sonny?
Yeah, I'm not like a finance guy in that kind of, economics guy. So I don't want to.
So you're not adding to your Bitcoin position. What's really interesting is I remember 5 years ago at Thanksgiving, a bunch of family members had this Bitcoin, and remember it rocketed up over Thanksgiving to like, whatever it was, $20,000. And I had given the keynote in Santa Monica at this like thing, and I said, "Listen, I know some of you like this is the most life-changing wealth you ever have. You have 99.59s in this. Just please sell half and let the other half roll." Fascinatingly, if you had held for 5 years, you are exactly even. It literally was trading at 1920, and here we are 5 years later.
Bananas.
And that is bananas. Pull up the 5-year chart on Google if you can do it real quick, Nick.
It's so insane to
Bitcoin
contemplate
price
that it was
5 year.
at whatever, almost $70,000.
So that doesn't, like, to me, like the current price being at where it was 5 years ago, it just tells me that it's undervalued. Like, I just don't see how Bitcoin in 5 years as...
And make that bigger and then hit 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that, like, if you go back to that, like, December 15th, 19,000. I remember this Thanksgiving, Christmas, and everybody was losing their minds. And I was like, man, we bought this for $100. We need to sell half our position. And there it is, folks. Boom. You just can take out all the lows for 3 years of lows and 2 years of highs. It's exactly the same. It's a stable coin. Bitcoin's turning into a stable coin.
Jason, if you look back at the past 2 years, go back to the chart for a second.
Right.
Like that price movement was a dollar-based price movement with a lot of printing of money, right?
Yeah.
So the price went up. What you may see in the next run is the price move up because other countries are printing money.
Yes.
So what happens is
and scarcity.
The US printed a lot more money than anyone else in the past couple of years. We printed trillions and trillions of dollars. All these other countries right now are struggling because they have budget deficits. They have to pay for energy. They have to pay for a lot of balance of payments issues that they've got. They're going to print money en masse. And Bitcoin is not only it's not a singly traded asset. It's not just in the US. It's traded globally. So if the price of Bitcoin against the rand starts falling, and the rand it becomes more expensive in rands, and they're printing more money in that country, the inflation goes up. People are going to be buying. Bitcoin just needs to be flat in US dollars for it to run up.
Amazing. This is not investment advice.
Not investment advice.
Sunny Madra,
Not
co-founder
investment
of
advice.
Definitive Intelligence. Vinny Lingham, co-founder of Civic and Weight Room. Guys, this is the best. This is increasingly becoming my favorite part of every month.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Always good
Thanks for
fun.
having
Enjoy
us
your
again.
video
guys.
card, Vinny. Enjoy that video card.
I will.
Thanks for having us again.